Welcome, everyone. It's Tats here, and welcome to Tats Talk Live. And I'm really excited today because I get to talk again with Jim Kunkle, who I interview on my podcast Specified a while back. And I get to find out how he's been, because when we first talked, you were just getting the YouTube site up, and I've seen so much progress with that. So I'm really excited to learn what has happened since we talked.
Yeah, Tats, thank you for having me on LinkedIn Live. I really appreciate this. It's been about a year ago, I think we did the podcast.
Absolutely. And what have you sort of what was your journey? I know that right now, with sort of work at home and the pandemic, people are getting on digital more, but you started this journey a while back. You've learned a lot of things, and there's a bunch of people that are trying to get on this now. What can you pass on from the stuff that you've learned?
Well, starting in January of 2020, I pretty much launched my YouTube channel, and the focus was on the protective coatings industry, the global industry. And so I started reaching out to a lot of professionals and really great subject matter experts to get information from them, these global topics, and have this discussion and things like that. And what was really unique about it was that we were really disseminating a lot of great information out there. And then all of a sudden my subscribers started to increase. And I had more interactions with not only contacts that I work with in the industry, but also contacts that I don't work with in the industry globally. And so it started to branch off from doing global topic interviews to doing basically product information, that's real beneficial for the industry. Lessons learned. I do these 2-minute lessons learned that do very well. And then also too, doing something very unique, like, Master Coatings Inspector with Juan Caballero, or Thursdays with Tolga, where, Tolga Daraz, who is also a protective coating specialist and very knowledgeable in a lot of things. We cover a lot of different topics. And, just recently, we did a 2-parter about the basically the digital transformation in the paints and coatings industry. And what Tolga covered, I had people reaching out to me saying, hey, we're going through this process, and 2020 with COVID-19 has intensified this digitalization. And so now I'm starting to think to myself, there's so much more topics that I could really cover that are not just strictly about surface prep, coating application. And then on top of that, as most people know in the industry, at least on the protective and the corrosion side, is that the Society for Protective Coatings and NACE International, we're merging both organizations into this larger global corrosions and protective coatings organization. So now that opens up a market for me for contacts and increase my subscribers, but also to tackle those topics related to corrosion. On LinkedIn, I do a quiz question every day, and it's great to get, again, the feedback from everybody. I've had people reach out to me saying, Jim, I love those quiz questions every day. But I also do it on, other platforms too. You're looking at Facebook, you're looking at, Instagram, obviously, because of the Facebook connection. But there's so many other things that I could look at too, being, groups and WhatsApp, and, like you're doing right now. I've done one live stream so far, and it was on YouTube, and it was on the beryllium rule that rolled out regarding respiratory beryllium for surface preparation. And, I had not a whole lot of people, a dozen people, I think, watch it. But then I was able, obviously, because it's on YouTube, it's part of the archive, it's part of the channel. So I had a lot of people watching it after saying, hey, I wish I would have saw it live. It was great. I mean, my dog was barking through it, parts of it. So it was real fun to do. And, I wanted to just share with everybody that, Tats, for me, you've been the role model for me, because, I also had the opportunity through the Society for Protective Coatings to do a 15-minute segment on the SSPC podcast called Coatings Talk with Jim Kunkle. And, again, very topical interviews, kind of similar to what I do on my YouTube channel. But you really inspired me to look at how can I connect better with my industry, but also to connect with professionals out there, and how can I bridge them together? And it's about information, it's about knowledge sharing, and it's about the connection. And that's what I really enjoy with doing YouTube and doing these live broadcasts and things like that. I think it's awesome. So I thank you very much, Tats. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, you did all the work, so whatever I did was just a small part of it. Now, for all the channels that you're sort of putting stuff out there, I know for our business, certain social channels work really well, but for engaging your audience, where does your growth and sort of engagement come from?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been a godsend for me as a professional. I do, my role is in business development for, SSPC, and it's going to be the same thing for the new organization. So in order for me to really be able to be connected in the industry, but also to make these key contacts with decision makers and influencers, LinkedIn has been a powerful tool for me. And, to see with this live broadcast capability, but also other things related to it, get the message out there. It's been a great platform. And the bulk of my viewership, like a lot of people say, hey, you don't even have quite 600 subscribers yet on YouTube, but that's not where my views are coming from. There are people that are clicking on it. So I have like about 3,600 connections on LinkedIn, which is nothing compared to what you have. But what's nice about it is those 3,600 connections also have other connections and other connections. And what I find is that over 93% of my views are coming directly from LinkedIn. And then there's a percentage coming from Facebook. So right now, so far, LinkedIn has been the primary driver for viewership. It hasn't translated into subscription on YouTube, but that's okay. And also too, a little bit to some extent, Facebook. And then I just started putting the 2-minute lessons on IGTV. And I'm getting a lot more interaction with that on IGTV, which is basically Instagram TV. So the Instagram thing is also pretty unique for me as well. So I'm going to go through a process here in November and December. I'm going through a transition professionally with the new organization, but also I've been looking at what's working, what's not working, what combination should I do? I used to do basically a 5 questions interview. I think when we talked last, that was pretty much it. And, that written interview series did very well, but I stopped doing it when I launched my YouTube channel because not that it's a lot of effort to really go in and do editing and things. It's all the prep you have to do for an interview, the questions, lining up a person, and then trying to work that not during work, but around your work schedule. Because for me, obviously, my job comes first, and that's important because it pays the bills. The secondary consideration always was the channel. But most people watch the channel, they think, man, you must do like 8 hours a day to do some of this stuff. And not really. But I really appreciate my audience. And, without, people on LinkedIn connection wise and the audience I have on YouTube, I don't think, most people point out to me all the time. They say, hey, I love your videos. Keep doing what you're doing. And, not that it's an ego thing, but it makes me feel good. It makes me feel that I'm contributing more than just being Jim Kunkle from SSPC or, soon to be, Jim Kunkle from the new organization and things like that. So the connections are great.
Wonderful. I haven't checked your site recently. Have you ever thought about transcribing some of your tips with the videos on your posts?
That's something that had been brought up to me. And, for a while, I did try to do Portuguese and Portuguese language, where I had guests that were speaking, obviously, from Brazil. And also because I do cover South America, Latin America for my current organization, in Spanish as well. And the difficulty that obviously I have is that, I know very little Spanish. I know hardly any Portuguese, and the translation would require me to do other things or to look at pulling in some type of other app or some other type of system. I've been primarily doing everything, through Zoom, which is a great platform to work on. I have looked, you're on the StreamYard. StreamYard is definitely a very good platform that I want to consider and look at as well. So I've been trying to do everything on a kind of a modest budget, but also too, when I go back and I look at a lot of the language, the translations or the episodes I do in a language, I haven't had a lot of viewership. And I think it's just because I don't have the, use the word penetration. I don't have the impact in the market like I do here in let's say North America.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I've been in the coding industry, I guess 10 years, but I must say there's so much information out there, and I like how you're tackling all the different areas, because even myself being in it so long, I just find it really confusing in certain things, because there's tons of stuff that comes out all the time, and regulations are constantly changing. What are some of the areas that I guess sort of are misunderstood, or just things that you find interesting and new?
Well, the thing that I find that a lot of people don't have a full understanding is the impact of corrosion on our infrastructure. And when I talk about infrastructure, it could be wastewater or water treatment. We know about the Flint story, and anytime there's a bridge failure, a collapse, which could be very fatal. That's when we start to really think about corrosion. But on the aspect of the protective coatings, there's so many different aspects. It's not just slapping paint on it. And so what I like is to kind of weave that story about not only corrosion mechanisms, the devastating effects of corrosion on our infrastructure, but also to how, either through the use of cathodic protection or other methods with material selection or design, but also protective coatings and how they can really help extend the life cycle of our infrastructure, but also save lives. It's just amazing the impact that corrosion protection and even coatings has on our daily life.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see, what else is there? I'm just trying to think. What are some areas that you find sort of are tough to understand, or that you're going to try to learn more about upcoming?
It's got to be the corrosion side. So, my let's say more recent history in my professional career. At one point I worked for a steel service center, and a fabricator who did powder coating. And so when I came at SSPC over about 8 years ago, I had a little bit of knowledge on the fabrication, the steel construction side, and then also too on the side of protective coatings when it comes to the powder coating. And then before that, I had worked a number of years for an industrial roofing provider, and we did roof coatings too, but it wasn't predominantly our market or anything like that. But going into this merger with NACE International is that I realized that one of my key, not weaknesses, but let's say it's lack of knowledge and experience is on the corrosion, let's say the more in-depth corrosion, especially with material selection and stuff like that, and corrosion protection when it comes to cathodic or sacrificial and all these different things that you can do to address those corrosions through cathodic protection, but to dovetail that into obviously the protective coating side as well. And I'm very excited about this merger, because now it opens, again, myself as a professional, it opens me up to this much broader global market. And now I can, I've always learned one thing. It's not what you know, it's how you say it, how you demonstrate your basic understanding, because understanding is sometimes even more important than 100% knowledge. If you're not, you could be the smartest person in the world, if you don't know how to communicate that information, or to be able to elicit, let's say, people to collaborate, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to stay within you. It's going to stay in a small bubble. So I want to, break out that barrier that I have when it comes to knowledge, learn more about the corrosion side, but also too, are there things that I can do? My YouTube channel, maybe it's doing the 2-minute lessons. Is it, doing some type of, pod in the podcast and stuff like that, to do that, to help, again, educate and inform this global industry we have.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, Jim, one thing I really like about what I've seen you do is there's a bunch of people, when they start creating content, they go from sort of engaging content to just creating content, and they forget about the engaging side. And I think you do a very good job going and having a routine of going around and engaging other people's posts. And that must be a lot of work, but I think that's really effective. Can you walk me through sort of your weekly habits around that? Because I think you do it in time blocks and you have a routine around that.
Yeah, so let's just tackle on the LinkedIn side. So my the greatest opportunities that I've ever gained from LinkedIn is liking and sharing and commenting on the posts that people have. So a lot of the posts they put a lot of time and effort into the post, and there's a lot of great information you can glean from that. But also too, it's an opportunity for you to connect with somebody at a different level than just more of a real casual type of a relationship, let's say, as a connection. But also too, it helps you learn a little bit more about their industry, about their background, a little bit about topics that are out there. And so where I really gain a lot of, hey, what topics should I reach out to people on and talk about, it's from the posts that are on LinkedIn, for example. On the YouTube side, there are a lot of people that do channels where they'll have information on, let's say, thermal spray or something like that, or roof coatings, right? Bruno No BS is where, how I met him was obviously from his posts. He's a social media giant in the roofing industry. And when I, first interacted with him, and I realized, Bruno and we have a lot of commonality. And, that's why I had to have like him on my channel and everything like that some months ago. But what I really like to do is to be able to support my connections, and a lot of times connections I don't have on LinkedIn, because of the information they're trying to share with the industry and with the market. If anyone say, LinkedIn for me, I'm a big fanboy of LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn, and it's always been for me a powerful tool. And yesterday I had someone call it a social media tool, and I absolutely disagreed. Not violently, but I very much vocally disagreed with that, because LinkedIn is not just a social media platform. Yeah, you were laughing, but you probably feel the same way I do too, Tats.
Yeah, it's it's kind of merged into everything now. So I think it's just something that you need to be able to master and be able to use naturally as sort of an extension of your activity, right? So
it doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're a scientist, if you're a salesperson, if you're an engineer. And, a lot of the connections that I have, that's where I get a lot of good, valuable information. That's where I get a lot of great, let's call it, business opportunities as well. And then when it comes to subject matter experts, that's where I'm finding these subject matter experts, not only for maybe interviewing, but also for my organization. There are a lot of times with, the Society for Protective Coatings, most people think we have hundreds of people working for our organization. We're working with under 50 people. And so what we have sometimes is that we don't have the staff that has all that subject matter knowledge. We have to find people in the industry. So a lot of times, I'm referring people back to, either the standards development side, or when it comes to the training development side, when it comes to training and certification programs, because we're focused on the craft worker and the contractor, and that level of training and certification. Those subject matter experts really help my organization be able to offer great products out there to the industry globally.
Yeah. So Jim, what's in store for the future?
Well, like I had mentioned earlier, I'm going through kind of a reassessment. I think November, December, people might see a little bit less from me. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I think what I need to do is I need to reevaluate. Because, like I always say too, if you're not adapting, if you're not changing, you're dying. And I want to make sure that I don't do what you mentioned earlier about, just putting content out there for content. Then that to me would make this not worth it. And so what I want to continue to do is to explore what I can do, both creative content when it comes to YouTube and the other platforms out there, but also too what I could do here on like LinkedIn, for example. When I laugh when people will say, "Hey, I've seen your videos from January when you first started, 2020, when you first started, to today, and you as an editor, you've become much, much better." And again, that drives me every time I do a video or do something. It's like, oh, well, how can I do that better? And I'm using mobile editing because it's the most economical. but it's actually not that bad. But I'm learning a lot from watching what you do and other people do that I'm connected with, both on LinkedIn, YouTube, and everything like that, because you get a lot of great ideas. Now, where you need to start getting worried about me is if I start putting hokey video stuff in and stuff like that, where it's a little bit silly. Occasionally I'll do that, but it's usually not that distracting.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, no, it's good. Keep up the good work. Stay on for a second. We'll chat a bit more, but yeah, I think you did a good job sort of outlining it, and I think a lot can be learned about watching how you've sort of approached this in a very narrow and focused way, and I think it's wonderful. Keep up the great work, Jim.
Thank you, Tats. I appreciate it.